or come to any of our programs? No one? Okay. So Volta is, well, 3.5 now. We offer 2 different programs. We have our resident companies who have offices in our space. We have 14 right now. And we also have a program for network members. So network members can come in and use our space. They have access to the Red Bull fridge, to coffee, to just like work in a quiet, organized workspace. If you're interested in network membership, you can apply online and you can come in and have a full tour of our space. Network membership also gives you the opportunity and access to office hours with legal, with marketing, accounting. We have a ton of different options. I'll also just let you know that demo camp is happening tonight, which is really cool. There's 10 lightning talks, or 10 demos, 5 lightning talks. So Ian will be demoing tonight, which is cool. Yeah, so tickets are $5 for students. If you are interested, come talk to me. I can get you a discount code, and you could get in for free. But
there's free pizza.
There is free pizza. And there's goodie bags.
Sold. Yeah.
Sold. Tonight at 6. It's at the Potter Auditorium on the Dow campus.
Is it the Row building?
The Row building, yeah. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions or wants to know anything more, let me know. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can send you the.
All right. So, Dee, am I doing introductions or you?
Go ahead. I'm going to control the camera.
All right, we have some fantastic folks here who come from many walks of life. On the far right is Danny Williams. Danny is not the former premier. Much better looking than him. There you go. I got to butter you up somehow.
Not as rich though.
Yet.
There you go. Yes, the operative word.
Sure.
And Danny comes with a ton of, you're a serial entrepreneur yourself. In addition to a very cool opportunity which has come across the country called Venture for Canada, which is another opportunity to intern, and he'll speak more about that. So as you can start to see, lots of opportunities going on here. Ian Archibald. Ian is how many years into your entrepreneurial journey?
Led a consulting company for a few years before, but in the startup world I'm at about 2.5 years now.
There you go.
About 2 years.
And Ian has been very generous also with having some students from NSCC check in on work terms. He's got a very cool and very interesting story around the pivots he's done. So we'll be interested to hear about that and where you're at today too. And then Akram. Akram, I don't know as much as I should about you.
Yeah, no problem. So I am in the entrepreneurial world for 6 years. I just started my 3rd business, Beaver Technologies.
Right.
I started 2 businesses before. 3D Next is a 3D printing company, and as a student agency, it's an agency that helps international students and newcomers in the city to settle, and we help them with all settlement services. And I worked in the Entrepreneurship Center at Dal and Adia and many other venues.
Awesome, thank you for
No
that.
problem.
And then we have the best startup lawyer in the world, Rob Cowan from Guinness Cooper. And Rob's been kind of one of the leaders in the ecosystem of building Halifax's availability and helping folks out, guiding them through the legal structures and really coaching and mentoring many entrepreneurs. And he'll have a great perspective on how the system has evolved and changed, in addition to hopefully some great questions on how do you get started. So thank you all so much. We tossed some questions back through Volta yesterday. You've got them. I don't know if you just want to start on with Danny and work your way through, and we'll go from there. Which is basically a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys are kind of in a class right now where you have to build some sort of business and work together as a team. And,
Yeah,
using
we're using Lean Canvas.
Yeah.
So the business model canvas, that's the structure we're running through.
Perfect. So one of the first companies that I started very much came out of something very similar to what you guys are doing right now. It was a class kind of project, and then just spun out from there, and we were able to raise some funding and hire a bunch of people and stuff. So it was, I could probably speak to a lot of the questions you guys have about the course, potential hurdles you may experience. So that was kind of one of the first ventures that I started. It was a biotech company what we were doing essentially was making polymers for bioadhesive bandages derived from an invasive crustacean species called green crab. So we tried to, the problem that we'd identified was this invasive species of crab was just a real nuisance, and there's no use case for them at all. They're just being thrown into landfills. And so we kind of went at that to develop some sort of solution and came up with a number of different things. So first, obviously, let's try and use them for food. That didn't work. There's not much meat in their shells, as we found out. And then we looked at, could we just sell them back to the fishing industry as bait? And that didn't work either because the fishermen just didn't want it because it was really shitty bait. And so we're like, okay, back to the drawing board. Did a lot of homework and research into the molecular composition of the shells and found there's a number of really interesting characteristics of green crab shells. One of them being that it has a really high concentration of this polymer called chitin. And then that has a derivative called chitosan, really cool applications across a bunch of different industries. And so we kind of went into that, identified a really niche market space, so bioadhesive bandages, and started to test whether or not we could actually make this chitosan stuff, which is essentially just this white powder that we were like selling to people. Buy our white powder. It was pretty funny at some of the pitch so I went to a few different, one of the first ways we raised some money was went to business plan competitions and pitched. And it was funny when we had this little vial of like this white powder that we were like, this is our stuff. And, does it look good? Yeah, anyway, so that was kind of one of the first real startups that I jumped into. And we were able to raise enough money to bring on some chemical engineers and make this powder. Who would have thought? Derivative. And anyway, but we weren't able to scale the process. We got some potential customers. We were just shipping them stuff for free to test it out to see if it was total garbage or if it was actually good, high quality stuff. And it was good stuff. They needed us to send a lot more, like an order of magnitude more. We just couldn't produce, and so it just didn't really scale. So it kind of failed. And so we moved on. Tons of lessons learned from there. After that, one of them was that you really need some sort of technical co-founder in your founding team. Someone. So for you guys, if you're doing an app or something, having someone who knows how to at least do some sort of very light programming, or can even just mock up some sort of really low fidelity kind of prototype that you're just swiping through, doesn't have to be programmed at all, is really critical in selling that to people. Because when you sell it, then you get some money and you can actually build it off that pre-sale, right? So you need someone somewhat technical on your founding team. Also, life sciences, biotech is a really highly regulated and slow-moving industry, and I wanted nothing to do with that after that experience. So I moved into tech startups because it's just much faster release cycles. You have to be learning and constantly kind of iterating off your product a lot quicker. And so I kind of started teaching myself how to program. Got into that space, working with different startups. Venture for Canada, I can tell you a little bit about that later. Got into that, and then. Just kind of got into the tech space, working with a number of different startups, actually working with Ian right now on Swell, which is a really cool product. I'll let him talk about it, speak to it a little bit more, but that's a little bit about my story, kind of in a 5-minute nutshell.
And on to the man who drinks champagne for breakfast.
Yes, sir.
I tell you, life is a startup entrepreneur.
Sometimes you gotta.
Oh yeah, sometimes you got it. Yeah, exactly. What Danny didn't mention is that he self-taught himself to program. He just started the Masters of Computer Science program at Dow with a business undergrad. So that's pretty impressive, and it just shows that if you guys have ambitions like that, you can start off as a lowly business student. I've been one. Work your way self-teach. Anyway.
Yeah.
I guess journey starts in Guysborough, but really grew up on the peninsula here. Rob was actually my swim coach growing up.
Oh. There we go.
I was like 2 years older than you.
Didn't drown you either.
No, he tried a few
I
times.
tried.
A few times. Seem to remember, so I was at the bottom of the pool.
Keep going.
Yeah. So,
He was always trying to pitch me. That was the problem.
yeah. So, coach, why do we
Entrepreneur
need
right out
10
of the
laps when
gate.
we can do 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, so grew up here, always kind of in the middle of it, always sort of running events, things like that. Didn't realize I was actually meant to be an entrepreneur until quite a bit later. You know, it was sort of, oh yeah, I use all these organizing skills and people skills to build a business instead of promoting concerts and stuff like that, which is technically a business, but you can't make money in it, don't try it. And then, yeah, I was out west, spent a year in Montreal, moved out west for 4 years as a whale watching guide, kayak guide out there. Decided to get my education, so came home, did an undergrad at Dal, MBA at St. Mary's. But you don't need an MBA to do this. If anything, it's sort of almost a detriment, so just do it, don't go to school.
Except NSCC.
Yeah, great program. Practical. Yeah, practical. So did a few things, you know, consulting company, GM of an international fundraising events company, but really always loved technology. I'm dyslexic, so I have problems programming or what have you, and learning new languages, but always loved technology and ideas around it and studied it a lot in school. And of course loved the ocean, surf a lot. That's how I met Danny like 8 or 9 years ago.
In the water.
In the water, yeah.
Pitched him too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, get off my way.
That's like
Yeah, and you know, so really kind of wanted to start a technology-enabled business, and you got to be careful with startups because the idea of startups is so loaded, and I think there's so much of the culture these days that leads you away from what you really need to be doing, which is a technology-enabled business. And I'm sort of trying to get away from the term startup even. But the, you know, I knew I wanted to do a technology-enabled business focused on the ocean, and was really had the idea to use the sensors in your phones and mobile devices to read ocean conditions in real time, be able to use that information as a surfer, because that's sort of real-time information that I'm interested in, and then from my time as a whale-watching guy driving boats for a living, you know, knowing the frequency of sets, because, you know, we're looking at sea lions and bears and wolves and stuff, and very close to the shore, where you've got to be very much aware of waves and sets coming in. Sometimes it can be like 45 minutes between sets, so it's very easy to get lulled in. I don't know if you saw the big disaster that was out in Tofino, you know, but I actually was a deckhand on that boat. That's where I learned how to drive boats, is on that one, and then moved to the Zodiac. So it's an example of kind of what can happen when you're not quite aware of sets coming in and you're in a shallow area. People lost their lives, so it's sort of a real problem. I was looking to solve that by using the sensors in people's mobile devices to read ocean conditions and create navigation interfaces and tools to help people navigate. You know, we're doing lots of customer interviews and everything, and we started, my business partner Craig and I, we started around this time in 2014, really got into it in December. We added a location-based social network for boaters to the product. We built this with the navigation tools, launched it in June of last year, really had it going, got a bunch of traction, but we realized that because the App Store got saturated, and because so many people entered into the marine navigation space, that we didn't have a business anymore. Like, you know, we had a little bit of revenue, we had a few hundred users, things were growing at a good pace, but looking at the metrics, you know, it was gonna, when we first were looking at it, it was 14 cents customer acquisition costs to get a dedicated mobile app user. By the time last fall hit, it was $1.84. So all of a sudden, like, your metrics, and we were looking at monetizing people at about $2 a pop using a freemium model. So all of a sudden, if your customer acquisition costs are $1.84, you're making $2 a pop. That leaves 16 cents to run your business on, and you get a hell of a lot of users at 16 cents, per, and we just weren't gonna do that. I don't think it was even possible, given the number of voters out there that use mobile apps. So, put a bullet in that. It was really tough. Had to lay off staff, had to tell my business partner who's got a family to go get a job. It was some of the, shutting down a company or changing or pivoting or what have you sucks. But you learn a lot and you sort of come out of it stronger. So was playing with a few ideas, wasn't ready to give up, and knew that, just wasn't ready to give up, basically. So was looking at different ideas and different things, and I'd love to say it was purely my idea, but I was approached by someone with this idea of, for them, it was, using the location-based stuff to manage remote moorings. And it was like, oh, wow, okay, well, we can take this one step and do an automated dock management platform. Spend about 3 months doing intensive customer discovery, then spend about another 2 months in the Propel ICT launch program before we wrote a line of code, before we started building our product at all, just doing customer discovery, making sure, getting our initial sales, doing all that, and then started building the product. And things are going good. Come to demo camp tonight, you can see it. And we got a few customers. We got a great partner in the Waterfront Development Corporation, and we're making it happen. So that's where we're at.
Thanks. So with me, actually, my story started when I was 15 years old. I was very exposed to the entrepreneurial world and family business because I used to help my father in his family business back in Yemen. So it was my favorite part of the day when I just go to his office and observe what he's doing and all of that. But, graduated from high school, and I decided to come to Canada to study my university. So before I went to university, I came here to study English. So that was around 8 years and a half ago. So I came, studied the language, went to Dal, did my business undergrad, and in the first year when I came here, because of the lack of good communications abilities in English, I found it really difficult to settle. Despite that I have the financial support, but there is not a lot of support systems for newcomers to be able to settle down in the city. So did some mistakes, learned from them. I wouldn't change anything. And I realized that I was not alone. There's a lot of international students, and a lot of them from high-income families that don't have the support system. So, got that opportunity. I just looked at it as an opportunity with good community impact, and I decided to start a Zal Student Agency, my first business. So I started the business as a kind of a social support for people, but turned out like people were willing to pay for it. So then did the business, hired co-op students from Dal, grew the business, but then I realized that it's not really scalable and repeatable business. Like I want to do something big. I want to go international. So then I decided to go to different industries. I did I finished all my classes at my the Masters in Entrepreneurship, MTI, Masters in Technology, Entrepreneurship and Innovation at St. Mary's. And it was a great program, and I was exposed to the tech kind of businesses and tech startups there. And I decided to go on that kind of route. And started before going there as well. I started a 3D printing company called 3D Next. I did a lot of customer discovery process in it, and I found a really great partner. We've been selling 3D printers to universities, marketing agencies, clients, and in Montreal and Halifax and New Brunswick. And we do also consulting work around 3D printing technology. And then 3D printing is great and it's growing, but it was kind of it was kind of a hardware side of my business, but I want to have also a software. I have a passion for that because it have even larger potential to scale internationally with the minimum amount of costs. So now I decided to go with a new business. First business would I would slow it down. 3D Next is going really well. We're making good sales. And decided to go with Beaver Technologies. Beaver Technologies, we're building a software. It's kind of the first of its kind, and we are still in stealth mode. But so far I hired 4 people, and I'm actually looking for 2 specifically Nova Scotia Community College students in the, IT. So yeah, that's kind of.
There you go.
Yeah, so full-time, and this is kind of a bit of my story, but I will tell you a little bit more when I hear more of the questions. Yeah.
There's a question in the back.
Oh, just very quickly, you said you're looking for 2 more NSCC IT students?
Yes.
Programmers?
Yes, developers, coders, developers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Like if they want to start
Do they have
tomorrow.
to be at NSCC?
Sorry?
Do they have to be at NSCC?
Yes.
recent grad of Nova Scotia Community College.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the room, we say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I have a Dow grad on my hands. All right, fine.
Sure, send me that problem.
So my journey is quite a bit different from everybody else's, and it may be just a touch of a generational thing, because I had the more traditional, old school kind of, go to I was in high school, got good marks, went off to university, studied science, came back, did 2 more years here at did a philosophy degree, and then I went to law school without really ever being exposed to, wanting, hey, have you ever thought about starting a business? Or there were no co-op programs there, at least that I was aware of. So it was just very much on this path, and then you kind of put your head up and say, oh, what are the other things that are available? So I started practicing law. I was like a litigation lawyer and hated that, and then went into the business law, which I quite liked. And then I went into work at Dow in their legal department for a couple of years. So I was doing sort of general legal work at the university, and then they created in 2005 a technology transfer office. So under this Springboard network, I don't know if you've heard of it, but NSCC is part of it. The mandate is really, driven by, the federal government's recognition that, we need to do more. There's lots of things happening in these universities and community colleges that is not making it into the market. So our job was to find these technologies and research projects. Patent was one route, and then, get them out into the wild. So I did that for a couple of years. And it was, I was looking for a little more deals, transactional things. We wrote a lot of grant applications. I drafted a lot of contracts and wrote some policies, but there was not a lot of actual, business, new companies being created. So I went to McGinnis Cooper and pitched this idea that, I wanted to work with startup companies. And so they said, well, we don't really know what that is. Can you elaborate? And I, of course, I don't really know, this was almost 10 years ago, right? So I don't really know, what that is, but there's a lot of, technology innovation, and there's businesses being created around that. So they took a bit of a flyer on me, and we started kind of poking away at it. And then after a couple of years that we really saw, and we'll come back to this in a little more detail later, that emergence of this ecosystem. Because I would say before, the mentality of a lot of entrepreneurs in the technology space was, I'm going to build a really great product and then people will buy it. So that is the complete opposite of what is happening now, which is, obviously a much better solution, which is, and as Ian pointed, before they even wrote any code, you're out talking to customers, what are they interested in, and doing the customer discovery piece, which is what you're doing with your lean canvas. You write some stuff down, you make some assumptions, and then you go out to talk to people and potential customers and formulate your business around that. Because what we found was, you know, that idea of I'm gonna build an app and then I'm just gonna launch it, you know, was kind of a sexy idea, but it never really, I mean, it, you know, in the odd case, it actually, you know, would work. But for most entrepreneurs, they got out there and started, you know, pitching it to customers, and they're like, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. So, since then, I've, you know, the practice has really grown, you know, and it's kind of an odd to be this little sort of startup lawyer, and there's a team of us now, you know, within McGinnis Cooper, but there's like 200 lawyers, and, you know, we have 600 people who work at the organization. So then, you know, I have become a little bit, I guess I'd be an intrapreneur, internally saying, you know, there are some things that we should be doing because our customers need them, our clients need them. So we started this project of developing an application that's accessible through our website, which would be for contract generation and execution and storage. And I can explain a little bit the rationale behind that later. But that, you know, we're in the process of finding it. And one of the things that, you know, that comment earlier about you need a technical co-founder, well, that's, you know, that's true. We don't really have technical people. We have an IT group, but they're busy maintaining our systems and our websites. But we needed somebody who actually can, you know, write the application. So we had to kind of outsource that. And when you do that, there's, you know, there's a cost issue, but also the time and that vision can be a little bit aligned. So we're, you know, I would say realistically about 18 months behind where, you know, we'd hope to be in actually getting this thing.
Which is par for the course, like, you know, we were supposed to have launched months ago, and it's just.
Yeah, and there are inevitably things and refinements, and so, you know, I think we've, you know, to be candid, fallen into the trap of trying to make it very polished and perfect before we actually put it in the hands of users. So I've, you know, it's kind of mindful of that as we go back. I go back and have discussions internally that, you know, we really just need to get this thing into the wild. So, so that's my journey.
Wonderful. Any questions so far? Anything pop up? All right. So I guess the next question is,